There were no ghosts in the night. They drove straight into Worcester in broad daylight, hands on the wheel, pockets full of cocaine and crack. Their audacity defied almost everything we thought of as a criminal ring. No stealth, no fear, no belief that the law could reach them. The once peaceful Midlands town had suddenly become the stage for a daring crime drama, where seemingly ordinary cars carried a nightmare for the local community. In mid-2025, text messages with the single word Nico began to appear on addicts' phones, stirring a quiet suspicion among investigators. Behind that short name, a complex network was operating, a modern-day county line that snaked its way from Luton to Worcester with terrifying precision, like a subway train that ran above the surface, in plain sight. And as police began to piece together the evidence, they uncovered more than just a drug operation. They uncovered a system, a pattern of operations that shocked crime fighters. The question is, what tipped them off? And would you recognize the signs of such a network if it were operating right outside your front door? At the center of the Nico Line was Hashim Malik, a 29-year-old man with an unremarkable appearance. Tracksuit bottoms, a low-slung cap, and the usual demeanor of any young man in Luton. But behind the plain appearance was a cold-blooded coordinator. Malik was not just a drug dealer, he ran a route, a machine that ran from Luton to Worcester with near-perfect precision. Under his command was Muhiz Jamshed, 24, who knew every mile, who drove and delivered, turning the motorways into arteries for the deadly drug. And in Worcester, where quiet back streets and residential areas suddenly became transit points, Max Didcot, Saud Ali, and Karim Mustadi were the spiders. They don't run the operation, but they are the face of it. The people who show up at the back door, stuff packages into customers' hands, and turn the streets into underground markets. At the bottom of the chain are the lesser-known faces, the car suppliers, the warehouse keepers, all the small but indispensable links. What's remarkable is that none of them grew up dreaming of becoming criminals. They all came from ordinary backgrounds, students, factory workers, unemployed youth. But the prospect of quick money and short-term power drew them in. And that's what makes this case so terrifying. It shows that crime doesn't always start with bad guys, but sometimes starts with people who look a lot like us. At first, Worcester noticed a subtle but noticeable change. Emergency room visits for cocaine and crack were soaring, while other local networks had been dismantled months earlier. This left police wondering, if the old gang was gone, who was filling the void so quickly? The first clue came not from a spectacular bust, but from the most mundane of things, the addicts' phones. Amid the chaotic text messages, a single word kept appearing: Nico. No landline number, no real name, just a pseudonym, but it appeared simultaneously on multiple devices, along with the cold offer, ready stock, familiar price. To the police, it was a clear sign of a county line at work, a group from out of town, coordinating drug distribution in Worcester like a regular bus route. Strangely, all the initial clues were spotless. None of the addicts knew Nico. There was no address, only a mechanically precise delivery schedule. It was this perfection that made the police suspect that something very well organized and very reckless was operating right under their noses. From that moment on, the investigation began quietly, and each piece, from the license plate to the phone signal, would gradually fit into the larger picture. The Nico Line was not the kind of chaotic backstreet gang you might expect to see. It operated like a clandestine enterprise, and the scariest part was the level of professionalism. Imagine a regular coach service. Every week, from Luton, a vehicle, sometimes an old hatchback, sometimes a faded van, rolled towards Worcester. Inside, there were no suitcases of clothes or passengers, only packages of cocaine and crack, weighed, wrapped, and arranged for immediate delivery. They didn't stay in any one spot for more than a few hours. The vehicle arrived, the goods were delivered, the vehicle returned. The constant rotation made tracking difficult, because by the time the police arrived at the address today, the gang had disappeared yesterday. Each member of the ring had a chillingly clear role. Malik, the leader, rarely appeared in person, directing from afar, coordinating via text messages. Jamshed, the delivery man, makes the crosstown trips, knowing when the roads are quietest and cameras are least active. In Worcester, Didcot, Ali, and Mustati are the point of sale, coordinating small transactions, meeting customers in parks, supermarket car parks, even on their doorsteps. Every transaction revolves around a burner phone, a cheap device that is discarded after a few weeks, and SIM cards are swapped to erase traces. This operation requires no meetings, just a text message Nico to activate the machine. Customers, mostly addicts in Worcester, receive a series of text messages, often starting with a short offer, new, clean, familiar price. No name, no complicated deal. If they agree, they text back, and the meeting point is sent within minutes. The network also cleverly exploited the familiarity of the city, meeting in public places when there were many people, making the transaction look like a casual meeting between friends, and thereby hiding themselves from the public eye. The police called this type of operation county lines, a model increasingly common in Britain, where gangs from big cities have expanded into small towns with little competition, and police are not prepared for the scale of the trade. The Nico Line was even more sophisticated in that it left virtually no headquarters, no shanty houses, no fixed hideouts to raid, just cars and phones that disappeared when needed. The delivery schedule was also terrifying. So regular as to be almost scientific, a trip would usually take place on the same day of the week, at the same time, along the same route, but with different license plates and a second driver to throw off the trail. This was both daring and dangerous, gaining the trust of the client, but also unintentionally creating a trail for the police to follow. It was this repetition that ironically became the group's Achilles heel, and also opened a new chapter in the investigation that was gradually tightening around the name Nico. The investigation reached its climax as West Mercia police began piecing together a picture of the scattered clues. License plates, travel times, text messages from the Nico Line phone, all of them fitting together with chilling perfection. ANPR picked up recurring sightings of old hatchbacks and vans with Luton plates in Worcester. CCTV cameras around Deansway and the surrounding residential area picked up familiar faces exchanging small packets at regular times. For weeks, officers watched silently, building a map of the operation. Who was driving? Who was delivering? Who was waiting at the meeting point? They knew they couldn't catch one packet of drugs. They needed to take down the whole network, and that meant waiting patiently for the moment when all the links came together. The moment came on a gray afternoon in early July. Malik had left Luton that morning, jam-shed at the wheel of the familiar silver van, with dozens of parcels of cocaine and crack in the back, ready for distribution. Didcot, Ali, and Mustati were waiting in Worcester, their burner phones flashing with simple messages. Incoming. The police, who had been monitoring the van from a distance via camouflage GPS and ANPR, intercepted it as it entered Deansway, a busy street in the heart of the city. The officers' body cameras captured the chaos. Car doors were flung open, shouts of "armed police" rang through the air. The drug dealers were startled, hesitated for a few seconds before being thrown to the ground. The bag of cocaine was still on the seat, unhidden. At the same time, other teams simultaneously raided several predetermined meeting points: a supermarket car park, the residential area where Ali and Mustati were hiding, and a makeshift flat that was being used as a short-term staging area. At each location, police seized burner phones, notebooks, removable SIM cards, and large amounts of cash rolled up in plastic bags. This evidence, along with Nico text messages extracted from dozens of buyers' phones, confirmed the scale of the operation and its links to Luton and Worcester. More important was the digital evidence. ANPR provided precise schedules for 24 trips over several months, while CCTV footage was used to match the members at the pickup points. Forensic analysis of the phones even showed that text messages were sent to hundreds of people at the same time with consistent language: clean, fast, familiar price. These facts suggested that this was not a small-time gang, but a well-run criminal enterprise. With all the links locked down, the police brought all 9 members before the court. No longer shadowy figures in the shadows, they are now visible in the investigative files, along with sealed bags of cocaine, statistical analysis, and shocking arrest videos. A seemingly invisible ring collapsing in the middle of a crowded street. The atmosphere in Worcester Crown Court was so tense that you could feel the tension in the air. On the prosecution table, sealed packets of cocaine, burner phones with batteries removed, and crumpled wads of cash were lined up like silent witnesses recounting the crime. Opposite them, the 9 defendants sat in a long row, faces once familiar on the Luton to Worcester buses, now bowed, no longer defiant as when they were free. The prosecutors painted the picture. 24 buses, hundreds of simultaneous messages from Nico, a trafficking network running like a machine. When the judge pronounced the sentence, the room fell silent. Hashim Malik, the man at the center of the operation, received the maximum sentence, 9 years and 2 months. They were followed by Muaz Jamshed, who was jailed for 5 years and 2 months, Max Didcote for 4 years and 10 months, Saud Ali for 4 years and 2 months, and Karim Mustadi for 4 years, all of whom were directly responsible for the drugs being smuggled into every corner of Worcester. Hussein Akhtar was sentenced to 2 years and 7 months, while Taylor Benford received 1 year and 3 months. The final two, Miles Price and Amy Deacon, were spared jail terms, but were given 2-year suspended sentences in strict supervision. The judge stressed that this was no amateur trafficking ring. It was a structured, reckless operation that was causing deep damage to the community. Families were being torn apart. Quiet streets were being turned into drug hotspots. As he concluded his remarks, silence fell over the room. There was no banging of gavels, only the scraping of chairs and the heavy footsteps of the defendants as they were led away. Outside, a light rain fell over the city, erasing traces of the siege. But the name Nico Line still resonated in people's memories as a reminder that darkness could return at any moment. The Nico Line case exposed the chilling evolution of the county lines model in Britain. Seemingly simple but extremely flexible and difficult to control. They required no warehouses, no fixed territory, just a used car, a few cheap phones, and a group of young people willing to take risks. This simplicity made them adaptable and difficult to destroy. In just a few months, Worcester, a normally peaceful city, became a drug hotspot, with cocaine and crack flowing in many times more than before. What was even more frightening was the network's invisibility. No signs, no visible kingpin, just the name Nico appearing in cold text messages. For the police, the case was a wake-up call, forcing them to upgrade their strategy, combining digital data such as ANPR and CCTV with behavioral analysis to track them down. But the impact on the community is even deeper. Families have lost children to drug addiction. Once quiet neighborhoods are now haunted by police cars and search warrants. Worcester has regained its peace, but the social scars left by the Nico Line are not easily erased. And the worrying thing is, when one line is shut down, there is always the risk that another name, another line, will be ready to take its place in the shadows. The story of the Nico Line ends not only with lengthy sentences, but also with a chilling lesson about how criminals adapt in the modern era. They don't need to hide in the shadows. Sometimes they run straight into the open, right in front of everyone. Worcester has lived through that nightmare and woke up. If we're not careful, new lines will continue to spring up in any town, anytime. This is not simply the story of one drug gang, but a reminder that data, technology, and the persistence of investigators can defeat even the most invisible networks. But the question remains, how many other Nico lines are operating quietly without us even noticing? If you're interested in real cases, dramatic investigations, and incisive analysis of modern crime, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Each subscription is a motivation for us to continue bringing you stories that are true, emotional, and also full of warnings. And who knows, in the next video, you may find the answer to the biggest question: how can darkness creep so easily into the safest places?